Hey guys, welcome to Chapter 11, Lesson 2. Learn about the changing governments in Rome and the big idea. So once a monarchy, the Romans created a republic. So we're going to find out how that happened with our video notes. So let's get going here. Woohoo! All right, so starting with Rome. So Romulus was the first king of Rome, taking the throne in 753 BCE. So then after that, move Mr. Kennedy up over here. So then after that, 7 Etruscan kings ruled after Romulus. So the Etruscan culture was influenced by Greek colonies in Italy. So you can see that kind of switch right there. Once had a king, and then going to be ruled by 7 of them. And then finally, in 509 BCE, when Roman nobles overthrew the last king, they created a new government called a republic because they did not want to be ruled by a king. So you can see, start with a king, 7 kings, and then when they were tired of kings, they're going to switch to a government called a republic. So that's important, guys. And takes us to our first hot question before Ms. Hodges comes in. So look at this hot question. You can probably relate this to something you already know. Explain how the founding fathers of the United States are similar to the Roman nobles who overthrew their king. So going back to what you guys might already know about the United States, you can see kind of a picture right there of actually the Declaration of Independence being signed and some founding fathers like George Washington. So explain how our founding fathers are similar to the Roman nobles who overthrew their king and maybe why they did that. So up next, I believe Ms. Hodge is going to come. Think about this hot question, guys. You're going to get civics next year, so this is really important. And here we go, Ms. Hodges.
Tag. Okay, my turn. All right, so let's talk a little bit about government and talk about how Rome changed. So we saw in Greece that there was not just one type of government, that it evolved and it changed. And it changed from one type of government to a different type of government as the country needed different things and as they grew. And we're going to see that same thing happen in Rome. So after Romulus and Remus, it starts out as a government ruled by a king. And that's because Romulus and Remus were fighting, and then Romulus came out on top and established himself as the leader of Rome, and he set it up and named it after himself. And so he ruled. And then there are kings that follow that. And for a while, it rocks on, and Rome is pretty solid, just growing, and they've got good farmland. They're getting stronger. And the monarchy is working very well. A monarchy works very well when the population is not so big. But the ideas from Greece and the idea of democracy began to move toward Rome through cultural diffusion, through the trade and things that were happening along the Mediterranean Sea, going across the Ionian Sea, back over to Greece. And so they started to get some new ideas. And when the people thought, hey, they're leading themselves over in Greece, maybe we could do that too, we're leading up to a republic. And a republic is a government in which elected leaders make decisions for the citizens. So a republic is a little bit different from a monarchy. A government in which elected leaders, just like a democracy, elected leaders make decisions for the citizens. In a democracy, a direct democracy, you'll see that everybody makes the decisions on everything. They get to vote every single time. But a republic is not like that. A republic is when there's just too much to do, too big, and we're going to elect somebody to make these decisions for us. So that's the difference between a republic and a direct democracy. So if you would please take a moment, draw some pictures here. Remember to use, pictures are supposed to help you to remember what the word means. So look at that picture. Look at the word and draw a picture that will help you remember what that is. Pause the video because you need to take a moment and do that. All right, so now we are back. You have taken a moment and drawn your picture, and we want to look at the purpose of this Roman Republic and what they were trying to accomplish. So if the government is elected leaders that are leading for the citizens, Rome does not want anybody to have too much power. No one person can have too much power. That's the problem with a monarchy. If the monarch is good, then the country does well. But if the monarch is evil, then he makes bad decisions and the people suffer. And they didn't want that to happen anymore. They didn't want one person to have too much power in the government. And so they're going to follow some of Aristotle's ideas and they're going to copy those as well and divide the power. Rome is not a democracy. Okay, circle the not there. Make sure you write that with capital letters, just like I did on the slide here, because I really want you to keep it straight. Democracy goes with Greece. Rome is not a democracy. It is a republic. Two totally different forms of government. Okay? They are both more free. The citizens do get to make decisions, but they are different. And how they work out in the lives of the daily lives of people is going to be different. So most of the officials that are elected are wealthy and powerful. That's because they have the time to spend running the government. They're not having to work for a living. They're not having to toil in the fields. They don't have to create anything. They don't make any pottery, anything like that. They are already wealthy, and so they have the time to put into it to lead the government and to make these decisions. So they would ask people and petition people to vote for them so that they could go lead. And that's what would happen. And Rome rocked on for quite a while and did really well under these circumstances. And the people were happy with it. The people were able to trade freely. Goods were flowing free. Trade is working really well. Coins are being accepted everywhere, Roman coins. And it's going very well for the Roman Republic. And anytime you're doing well, your enemies are always watching. And so challenges come from the outside. They're open to outside attacks because people see that they're doing well. And as they were watching what was going on, and then they began to weaken a little bit because of some bad years of harvest. They were having a little bit of trouble. So everybody's watching because you're doing really well. And then they had some bad luck kind of hit in terms of harvest. So when that hit, there was some instability around. And people were hungry and they had famine. And they needed some short-term leaders. So they needed somebody to come in, take over, and help them with that. And the guy that they elected to do that is going to be called a dictator, a short-term dictator. So under short-term leaders right there, it says only leaders. You need to fill in the word dictator. So I don't know where my little pen is right here. Let's pull this up. Make sure, there we go. Got it happening. Got it going on. This needs to say dictator. And we don't mean dictator like they're going to run the whole government. What we mean is a short-term dictator to solve a crisis. And they had one that was their most famous. So let's move on to the next slide. Their most famous dictator was given the opportunity to lead for a very short period of time. Dictators could only rule for 6 months. So this dictator has a limited amount of time to rule. I'm going to change this color here. 6 months. If he can't do the job in 6 months and solve everything, then it's not going to get solved. And so short-term leader, almost absolute power to correct everything that's gone wrong in 6 months. And so that's what their dictator is. It's not a dictator like a leader, like a monarch, or, over the whole government. They're just to solve this short-term crisis, crisis, short-term crisis. Please write neater than your teacher. That turned out pretty sloppy there. So crisis. So, and their most famous guy is Cincinnatus, where we get the term Cincinnati from. Cincinnati was named after Cincinnatus, and it's because of what he did. They wanted ideal people. And so to be an ideal Roman was to give power back to the people, not to hold on to power for yourself. So Cincinnatus is their big guy. He comes in, there's a problem. He comes in, there's attacks from the outside. And he comes in and he takes over. He organizes everybody. He's a great general and organizes people to come in and face these attacks. He didn't want to do this. He wanted to be a farmer. He had already served his term, but they begged him because he was so good. So he said, okay, I'm coming. So he comes into town, comes into Rome, and he sets this up, organizes the whole army, squashes the rebellion. It is a short period of time. I want to say it was I'm thinking it was less than 6 weeks. I'd have to look that up, and I will do that to make sure that we know. But it was a very short period of time. And as soon as he was done, and they wanted to give him prizes and make him awards and stuff like that. And he was like, no, 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 no. I'm giving all this power straight back to the government. And he gave it back to the leaders. And he went home to his farm. And they called him the ideal Roman. And we refer to General George Washington as the American Cincinnatus. As the American Cincinnatus, what that meant was George Washington was asked to serve more than 2 terms as president because he was so good. But he was like, no, that's the whole reason we left the king. We don't want that kind of power. And so he refused to take that power. And that's why we call him American Cincinnatus, because just like Cincinnatus from Rome, didn't want to have all that power in one place, wanted it spread out. So the big deal about dictators is to keep them from abusing power. They could only stay in power for 6 months. All right, guys, so that is me. And now it is time for Miss Tickle.
Hi. Okay, so your hot question. Do you agree with the Romans that Cincinnatus was an ideal leader? Defend your position using evidence from the biography and your knowledge of social studies. So this is not a hot question that you guys are going to start with saying, I agree or I disagree. You could put based on evidence, comma, Cincinnatus was, or based on evidence, Cincinnatus was not. You could start out with Cincinnatus was an ideal leader, Cincinnatus was not an ideal leader, and then state your reasons why. Do not start this with pronouns. Vocabulary needs to be used in it, and it should be a minimum of 3 sentences. Advanced should be reaching 5. Okay, we're going to move on. If you need to pause it and answer the question. Okay, challenges to the early republic. The patricians. These were your wealthy, powerful citizens. These are your upper class. They were nobles. They made up a small minority of the population. This is where I want you to write 10%. They were only 10% of the population. So you got 10% of the population controlling everything. Once controlled all aspects of government, and after 218 BC, not allowed to participate in trade or commerce. Now you have, so here's some pictures to represent the patricians. Now you have your plebeians. These were your common people. They were peasants, craftspeople, traders, other workers. They were the majority of your population. So this is where I want you to write 90%. This is 90% of the people who are your farmers. They served in the military. They paid taxes. They've gained the right to participate in government, and only Romans could be traders, so many became wealthy. And here's some pictures to represent your plebeians. So, plebeians grow frustrated with lack of power in government. They are very frustrated that only 10%, which is the patricians, are making the decisions in government and not looking out for them. The wealthy are looking out for the wealthy. So, not cool, dude, not cool. In 494 BC, plebeians go on strike and even left Rome and created their own city. So what this means is you had 90% of the population getting up and basically walking out of Rome and saying, we're paying your taxes, we're protecting you with the military, we're providing your food and your crops, but you give us no say-so in government, so we're out here. We're out. We're gone. Peace. See ya. Okay? They go on strike. They leave the city. The patricians agreed to share the power so that the republic wouldn't collapse. They said, okay, wait. What do we need to do? What do we need to do? You guys need to come back here. We need to talk about this. We need to figure out something that's going to work. So the patricians ended up agreeing to share power so that the republic wouldn't collapse. They created the Council of the Plebs and the office of the Tribune to created to give more power to the plebeians. So this is the way the patricians sort of gave that peace offering and said, here will be your representation in government. Here is your voice in government. So they give that power to the plebeians. In 287 BC, the Council of Plebs is allowed to pass laws for all citizens. This was enough to satisfy the plebeians to come back because now they feel like they have that voice in government. And that's it for me, guys. We will see you in class. Bye. Okay, it came up and said discard. Do you want to keep your ink annotations? It's not stopped yet. I can't figure this
I
out.
always say yes to discard.
Yes, discard.
Yeah, because with that, you've ended the PowerPoint and it doesn't save the PowerPoint. So go to that one. Stop.